listeners. This is Ivan Franklin Rose, and this is the one on compatibility. Now, compatibility is an important ingredient in relationships because it is the basis of how well you and your partner get along. In an article by the Very Well Mind, which I like to quote a lot, they talk about the importance of compatibility. Things like being physically attracted to each other or having complementary astrology signs may indicate surface-level compatibility, they say. However, true compatibility often involves sharing the same values, beliefs, interests, goals, and lifestyles, says Claudia Delano, a licensed marriage and family therapist and the author of The 7 Destinies of Love. Compatibility involves being in alignment with one another in a way that allows you to function together harmoniously, Delano says. From this article, we will cover the importance of compatibility in relationships and explore some signs that can indicate that you and your partner are compatible with each other. Compatibility is an important factor to consider when you begin dating someone. In fact, research shows that when people meet potential partners, they unconsciously test them for compatibility against their internal criteria list. A 2022 study notes that people tend to weigh the similarities and differences between themselves and potential partners in order to check whether they're compatible and whether a romantic relationship is viable. You may know you're compatible with someone when you feel like you relate to them or enjoy their company, and your values align in important areas. Being compatible doesn't necessarily mean that you and your partner share all the same traits, hobbies, interests, and views. But it does mean that you have a lot in common and you can communicate effectively in order to work out any differences. If you and your partner are not compatible with each other, you may have different views and approaches to things, which can lead to difficulty communicating and to frequent conflict in the relationship. These are 10 signs of compatibility in a relationship. Positive interactions. This is a major sign of compatibility. The positive interactions between you and your partner should outweigh the conflicts and negative experiences, says Delano. In the initial stages of a relationship, this can mean that you and your partner hit it off well with each other and feel attracted to one another when you meet. Your intersections foster mutual positive regard and active engagement with each other. As you spend more time with each other, you may feel like you can relate to them and be excited to share more and more of yourself with them while wanting to learn more about them. Over time, you develop trust and become comfortable with each other. Then similar values. According to Delano, one of the key indicators of compatibility is having similar views and values when it comes to important areas such as family, work, lifestyle, finances, social life, politics, religion or spirituality, ethics, or worldviews. Research shows that having similar attitudes as your partner is linked to greater happiness and relationship satisfaction, whereas having contrasting attitudes is linked to greater stress, conflict, and depression, which is what this series is all about, fighting those three things. Shared long-term goals. Another sign of compatibility is wanting the same things out of life and your relationship. If you and your partner have aligned long-term goals, you can work towards them. On the other hand, if you and your partner want different things, you may be at odds with each other. For instance, if one of you wants children and the other doesn't, this could cause conflict and potentially be a deal breaker in your relationship. Physical attraction and chemistry is another important ingredient when it comes to compatibility. In many cases, instant physical attraction, more commonly known as love at first sight, can bring people closely together and inspire them to make an effort to spend time with each other and get to know one another. On the other hand, it is possible for physical attraction to develop and grow over time between people who are emotionally, intellectually compatible and have a lot of shared interests. However, it's important to remember that physical attraction alone shouldn't be mistaken for compatibility. It may be helpful to exercise greater caution if there is extremely strong initial physical attraction, as this chemistry may sometimes cause people to ignore or overlook other signs of incompatibility. Next is emotional alignment. In order to be compatible, you and your partner need to be emotionally aligned with each other. This involves being attuned to each other's feelings and being on similar wavelengths emotionally, which can help you develop a deep emotional connection with one another. This will gradually translate to a feeling of closeness, trust, and intimacy in the relationship. Even if you and your partner are always not on the same wavelength exactly, emotionally, you need to be able to communicate what you're feeling and request what you need to feel more connected and attuned. If your partner doesn't know, they can't do anything to try to help. Having a similar sense of humor and finding joy in each other's company can contribute to compatibility. Laughter and playfulness can help create a positive and enjoyable relationship dynamic. Humor is so important to have in a relationship. Radical honesty. Another indicator of compatibility is feeling comfortable in your own skin when you're with your partner. It can be wonderful to feel like you can be your true, authentic self around them and don't feel like you have to keep secrets or hide any part of yourself from them. A good sign of compatibility is being able to be completely honest about your feelings, hopes, and dreams without judgment. Then mutual support. While it's great if you and your partner have the same preferences, hobbies, and interests, you don't necessarily have to like all the same things in order to be compatible. However, compatibility does mean enthusiastically supporting and encouraging each other's hobbies and passions. It also means respecting and accommodating their preferences, even if they're different from yours. Effective communication. In order to be compatible, you and your partner must be able to communicate effectively. This means being able to understand and speak each other's love languages so you can give and receive love in fulfilling ways. Look at my podcast when you get a chance on the 5 love languages expanded. We go into great depth on them. It also means being able to communicate constructively in order to resolve conflicts, says Delano. This involves being able to express yourself freely, actively listening to your partner, find solutions together, and make compromises for each other. The next is acceptance. While your partner may have many positive qualities, as human beings, we all have some more challenging qualities too. True compatibility means being aware of the other's shortcomings and practicing accepting them for who they are, flaws and imperfections and all, as long as there is not intentional harm being done to anyone. Compatibility over time, it's important to note, it's a complex thing and can change as a relationship progresses, says Delano. For example, your compatibility may increase if you and your partner adopt each other's views and personality traits and become more similar to each other over time. However, your compatibility may be eroded if your emotional baggage surfaces and clashes with your partner's unresolved issues, Delano explains. A strong foundation of communication, empathy, and personal development by each partner is essential to maintaining compatibility, says Delano. Now, I know that some people feel or believe in the old adage that opposites attract. So let's look at, do opposites attract? We've heard it again and again, but there's a real psychology behind that popular phrase. A myth has developed that, like magnets, we are attracted to our polar opposites. In old romantic movies that we viewed, we might have seen the good girl attracted to the bad boy. We might have a friend, the shy retiring sort, who is attracted to an outgoing and friendly person. It seems to make sense that they'd be a good match. For example, if a college student studies day and night in his room and is academically driven, we might set that person up with a more social student who goes out on weekends and gets less stellar grades. The rationale is clear. We reason that the student getting good grades would be a positive influence on the other study habits, and the social butterfly would draw the other student out of their room for more fun times, let them come out of their shell, in other words. As a result, we erroneously conclude that complementary personalities make for better, stronger, healthy relationships. Scientific evidence has proven, however, that this is not true. The article discusses why people who are wildly different from one another find themselves attracted to each other, the pros and cons of dating your opposite, and what really makes a relationship last past that initial phase of attraction. Why do we initially attract our opposite? Opposites may attract at first because the other person seems new and exciting. Maybe the object of your attention is a medal-winning professional snowboarder and you are an accountant. Or perhaps that person who entered the conference room represents something forbidden. They might come from another class, race, or socioeconomic background that is different from the kind of partner your family expects you to be with, for example. Upon first meeting, the physical chemistry might be off the charts. This might be evidence of lust. Strong sexual desire in and of itself can be healthy. It also keeps the flame of passion stoked in a long-term relationship. But lust without emotions, intimacy, and commonalities does not make for a healthy long-term relationship. According to scientific studies discussed below, neither does staying with our opposites. Let's say after the initial encounter, you both decided to date. The ways you're both diametrically opposed enhances the appeal of you two as a couple. In the beginning stages, the differences may still seem intriguing. That's because differences haven't proven to be obstacles in the relationship yet. If your current flame of partner is your opposite, it will make for a more difficult road ahead. What about couples with mismatched sex drives? Is that an issue? Well, sexual satisfaction and frequency contribute to healthy long-term romantic relationships. Partners having different or opposite sexual relationships and their requirements as such is common. Past findings link the mismatch to poorer sexual and relationship outcomes. However, those who feel like they are opposites when it comes to sexual compatibility can rest assured. A new study sampling 366 couples found that higher desire rather than matching desire was most important. The idea is that couples won't always have to be in the same mood or aligned about sex, and that's okay. But zeroing in on increasing and sustaining desire and working through differences was proven to be more important than matching your partner's desires. Study participants had higher sexual and relationship satisfaction as a result. Pros and cons of dating your opposite. Let's look briefly at some of the pros and cons of dating someone who's your opposite, and then we'll go through it in more depth. Pros. You may learn to compromise. You may learn how to be more patient and empathetic. There may be greater opportunity to learn new things. The excitement may be more intense. Cons. Might not be sustainable long term if excitement wears off. More potential for disagreements. Requires better and more frequent communication. You may find you both have widely different lifestyles and goals. So let's look at it in more depth. Only you can decide whether this is relevant to you. So, the pros of dating your opposite. To be sure, there are benefits in a relationship with someone who is your opposite. For instance, people who have type A personalities may calm down and feel less pressured by coming home to type B personalities with more laid-back traits. Other ways you may benefit for a while from being with your opposite include their strengths complement your weaknesses and vice versa. You get more comfortable with compromise. You'll teach each other new things. You'll stretch your understanding and empathy muscles. You'll keep the passion alive more easily. You'll find more balance. You'll increase your tolerance level, and you'll gain more patience. Those are some of the pros. Now, the cons of dating your opposite. The drawbacks of opposites uniting date back to early research. In one study, timid, verbally inhibited participants were paired with critical, assertive partners. The study showed that although they might have been attracted at first, the quality of the relationship suffered as the relationship matured over time. Pairings became unsustainable. The study consisted of timid, inhibited males who were alienated by strong critical females. While at the time of the study, society's reluctance to honor assertive females may have come into play, the study was done about 20 years ago. Further studies conducted by the Gottman Institute noted that adding criticism and contempt into the mix by any gender can prove destructive to any relationship, and that makes sense. Nevertheless, the study revealed that opposite pairings were unsustainable. We also know the limitations of pairing opposites through other studies. For example, if another's face is similar to your own, you are more likely to deem that person trustworthy, according to an article published in the journal Psychological Science. That suggests that if someone looks like us, we are more likely to trust them. And if they don't appear similar to us, we consider their character not as desirable. Recently, psychologists analyzed the combined results of over 240 studies in one. They too found that similar partnerships scored the highest. Similarities fell into the areas of values, attitudes, personality traits, and interests. Without similarities, it seems like partnerships fall apart. For example, suppose one person in the relationship is ambitious and has certain life goals, and the other person is free-spirited and doesn't have the same values. In that case, the relationship likely won't work in the long run. Similarities make for a stronger pairing. It's only logical. Michael Kosinski, assistant professor of organizational behavior at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, coordinated a global collaboration between more than 100 universities studying Facebook digital footprints of 8 million people. He co-authored a study published in the journal Psychological Science. By analyzing the digital footprints left on Facebook, their likes, and what they posted about, evidence showed birds of a feather do flock together. Most people interact with others who are similar to them online. As humans, we tend to gravitate towards those more like us. Partners who are opposite to you in certain aspects, like in their taste and in music or in favorite foods, can enhance a relationship for sure if you're willing to experiment with their tastes. And in the short term, opposites can work in relationships. Just keep in mind that if partners aren't in alignment regarding many important aspects of a relationship, it just might not last. Before entering it into a relationship, check to see if your core values, attitudes, personality traits, interests, and goals are in sync. Based on solid evidence, relationships are more likely to flourish if you're engaged with someone similar. Now, we know that if you are attracted to someone, sometimes you just don't care. You just want to see where it goes. You want to enjoy what you want to enjoy. And we're not saying not to do that. We're just trying to make you aware of the pros and cons of dating someone that is opposite, just so you have more knowledge and can make your own decisions. Okay, let's talk about the 13 red flags in relationships, which was published June 3rd of 23 by Wendy Rose Gould and medically reviewed by Rachel Goldman, PhD, in the Verywell Mind, one of my favorite publications. 13, that's Taylor Swift's favorite number. 13 are as follows. Now there's more, these are just 13 of them. I'm recording on Friday the 13th, so I chose 13 of them. Anyway, number one is simple, it's obvious, it's alcoholism and drug abuse. Now we're not talking about someone who just enjoys drinking with dinner. We're talking about someone who has to have one drink after another continuously, cannot stop until they get drunk. This is something that's a clue that maybe there's a problem here, and just to be aware of it. And drug abuse as well. We're not saying someone can't use drugs for their well-being, because certainly some things for anxiety and depression require it, but we're talking about other substances that get out of hand and lead a person to not be able to control their life in a proper manner and be a proper partner for you. Number two is violent displays. This is someone who can't control their emotions, who takes it out on a waiter or waitress, or you, or a family member. You can see this, and you don't want that, because that will fester and grow, and in a relationship, it's just a really terrible trait. So just be aware that if they show these displays, you may want to consider strongly whether to continue it. Three is mismatched relationship goals. Dr. Wendy Walsh, who's a PhD in clinical psychologist specializing in relationships, says, if you're in a relationship that are at odds, this could be a sign that it's time to walk away if you're at odds with each other. While this is less of a red flag in a sense that is a personal issue to work on, it's a red flag for the future of your relationship. So make sure that your goals are not at odds with each other. If they say, for instance, they will never get married and that's something you desire, then believe them. Other misaligned relationship goals include where you want to live and whether you want to have children. That's a big one. Or how you plan to tackle finances. So you need to have this information as to where they're going when things get serious in the relationship. In the beginning, it may not be as important, but somewhere in the line before you get serious, you need to know this. Number four is talking about, well, common red flag of persistent jealousy and distrust. We're talking about some comments made by Amber Trueblood, who's a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she said that often the red flag of a very insecure partner looks like attentiveness at the start of a relationship, but there's an underlying control problem beneath all the attention. Later in the relationship, it's easier to look back and reinterpret that consistent attention or overboard generosity and see it as desperate insecurity. History of infidelity is next. Relationships require trust to succeed. If your partner has a history of infidelity, it's important to proceed with caution. Even if your partner has demonstrated change, you must ask yourself if you feel comfortable pursuing the relationship knowing they have a history of cheating. Some people may not be bothered by this, but if you are, recognize that this factor will affect your ability to trust your partner completely in the future, and that may lead to other problems. Controlling nature. This is big. A partner who is controlling in any way likely has deep personal issues they must work on. Rethink your relationship if your partner tries to control who you see, who you talk to, where you go, how you spend your money, what you do online, what your body looks like, and what you eat or even what you wear. These definitely are clues and signs. Watch out for a person who practices negging and tries to gain power over you by making you feel insecure. They use insults and criticism in an effort to make you feel less than, to manipulate and control you. They try to make you feel worthless and have a low self-esteem so you'll stay with them and doubt yourself. Now, I want to cover this before I go on to the rest of these. I want to cover negging, examples of negging, because a lot of people haven't heard this term, and this is very important to understand. So below is a list of signs that someone may be negging you, along with examples. However, remember that not all these behaviors are necessarily indicative of negging and may just be your partner's personality or simply a misunderstanding. That's why you have to look at it carefully and try to give every benefit of the doubt to understand, but if it is negging, watch out. So disparaging comments like, that dress doesn't look good on you. Unwarranted criticism. I can't believe you did that. What were you thinking? Jokes at your expense. Haha, did you really just say that? Sarcasm. Yeah, right. Like that would ever happen. Undermining your accomplishments, like your success was all luck anyway. Backhanded compliments. You look better without makeup. Being dismissive or unsupportive of your ideas and ambitions. You don't really think you can do that, do you? Excessive teasing in a negative way. What's wrong with your hair today? Did you forget to brush it? Withholding positive words or compliments. That's nice, I guess, instead of giving some other positive comment. It's essential to take note of how often these types of comments and behaviors are used by your partner and the context in which they occur. If you're wondering why your partner is negging you, it is possible they are trying to control or manipulate you into feeling insecure or inferior, like I said a minute ago. Get you to doubt yourself. It could also be due to feelings of insecurity or fear on their end. Ultimately, it really depends on the individual's motivations for using negging as a tactic in your relationship. Negging is sort of a form of gaslighting, but not exactly. Negging can be considered that because it involves manipulating someone's emotions or reality in order to gain power and control. Gaslighting, though, usually involves more overt forms of manipulation that are meant to make the victim doubt their own thoughts, memories, or perception. Negging is often used as a way to undermine someone's self-worth or self-esteem. So they're close, but it's not exactly the same. So that's negging. I thought that was important to go over. And now we're going on to number 7, stories of crazy exes. Now, we're all told not to talk about our exes on the first date. We understand that. But sometime in a relationship, it comes up about our exes and what relationships we've been in. So it's normal. It's okay to say certain things, but because you were with them, there must have been something positive. So you have to recognize that there must have been something good in them in the first place, even though there may have been other problems. And if a person doesn't take ownership of realizing that, it may be a sign. So let's go into it. Talking about old flames is common, especially when you're first starting to date someone new. Do pay attention to the language your partner uses when discussing those they've dated in the past. This sort of perspective deflects any responsibility and demonstrates a lack of respect for the people they once cared for and loved. If a potential mate describes their exes as crazy instead of taking 50% of the responsibilities for any craziness that may have existed in the past relationships, then there's a good chance you could become their next crazy ex. So, although it's true that there may have been issues that came up that you couldn't live with that person anymore, you couldn't be with that person anymore, still, you have to acknowledge that at one time they were a good person. At one time, there was some reason that you went with them. And then also, there could be something that you did to trigger that, even if it wasn't your fault. Let's say a person has ADHD or bipolarism, and you inadvertently trigger some of the things that cause their behavior because you weren't learned enough in those areas to deal with it and to know what not to do. But still, you triggered it. You had some part in what was going on. So take ownership of your own faults, if there were any, in a relationship. It's manly to say, look, I screwed up. I did this, and now I learned from that, and we'll move on. I mean, if it's something that you can talk about. All right. The next is no friends, number 8. If your partner struggles to make and maintain relationships, this could indicate that you will also struggle to connect with them. So try to understand why your partner has struggled to build connections with others. If you discover a deflection, no personal culpability, or lack of drive, then you will likely experience the same treatment in your relationship. Now, sometimes a person hasn't had the opportunity to make friends, they just moved to an area, but you can take all this into consideration. Do they have the ability to make friends? Do they seem like an affable person? Number 9, they give you all their time. You might say, well, this is wonderful, but take notice. Could be a red flag when a partner, and it could tie into having no friends too, in a sense that when a partner doesn't have other relationships, hobbies, or goals, that's a recipe for unhealthy, unfulfilling relationship. When each party has their own sense of self, it can enrich your individual selves and your bond. If someone relies on you entirely and always for their sense of happiness and entertainment, this can lead to feelings of suffocation, resentment, and unhappiness. So if anyone out there has been suffocated by somebody, this doesn't feel good. And in the very beginning, the attention is wonderful, but it just gets to be too much sometimes. They don't give you any space. They don't allow you to have your own personal time. It just isn't right. Number 10 is very important. It's a lack of emotional intimacy. One of the best parts of being in a romantic relationship is connecting deeply and authentically with another person. For some, emotional intimacy is challenging, but it should always be the goal. A partner who shows no interest in opening up and bonding is a death bell for a relationship. Now, 11, gaslighting. Gaslighting is somewhat similar to negging, as we said, but it's when a person says or does things to make you question your own sanity. They may lie, tell you you're forgetful, distort history, accuse you of overreacting, and employ other manipulative tactics to make you seem and feel mentally ill. The goal of this type of emotional abuse is control. It's a deliberate attempt to blur your concept of reality, causing you to question your own judgment and perception. Two people can have different opinions on a subject without making their partner feel the way we described above, but when they do that, what they're trying to do in the case of gaslighting is they want to control you by making you feel you need them, that your perceptions aren't valid without them, and that you need to look to them to judgment. It's a method of control and manipulation, and there's a fine line. But you have to be able to use your own sense of judgment of how this is happening. Like if you talk about something that someone else has evidence in a discussion, and they say, that's crazy, look at this over here. Well, they're not presenting it correct. They should present it in a much better way. But if they're backing up what they're saying with something and you have no backup, well, that's a little different because then they're presenting evidence that they have on a subject. But if it's their opinion, you're entitled to your opinion as well. No opinion is totally correct unless it comes founded from research. Like on these articles and everything I quote to you in these lectures, I usually give you the background and the credibility and who said it and who they are. But basically, you've got to be the judge of whether your partner, the person you're dating and beginning a relationship with, is trying to say things to control you, and demean you and your opinion, or do they just express their opinion and give you any value to yours? Okay? Now, love bombing, number 12. People with narcissistic or borderline personality disorders, among others, typically engage in love boarding, manipulatively showering someone with praise and affection to gain or regain trust quickly. They bomb you with extreme displays of affection and attention with the intent to manipulate you. Ask, what is the intention? Is it too early in the relationship for whatever it is they're doing? Is it from their heart? What is their agenda? Look to see if they have an agenda. Maybe they don't. They're just being nice. Do they seem to expect something in return, in other words? A true love bomber will be kind one minute and cruel the next. He'll hold his gift over you and remind you what he's done for you in the relationship when things come up and he wants what he wants. And say, well, I did this for you. So that's the difference. This is the difference between love bombing someone and just being nice with no agenda, because you really can't feel for someone. I understand that in love at first sight, where you're both drawn immediately and you just have that rush of emotion, that the tendency is to do all kinds of things to each other, gift-wise and whatever, and shower each other with affection and attention. But it's different. The love bomber has a different agenda, and it's all about control and manipulation for them. So use your judgment. Just be armed with this information. And number 13, the last on this list of red flags, and there's many other red flags, but this is just a small list of 13. Taylor Swift's favorite number. Breadcrumbing. Someone who uses breadcrumbing is leading you on with little morsels of encouragement, just enough so you don't give up on the relationship. Move towards this person and they'll move away. But if you withdraw, the person will ramp up the breadcrumbing again. A breadcrumber doesn't like or intend to commit. So basically, we've covered the importance of compatibility. We've gone through whether opposites attract, and we've given you 13 signs to be aware of red flags in the beginning of a relationship, that it may not be going the way you want it. We all have the best expectations when meeting somebody new, and we only can hope for the best. But at least you're armed with information that might save you years of grief and agony later and going into states of anxiety and depression and stress, which we try to avoid at all costs. If you're already in a relationship that shows some of these red flag signs, we've had other podcasts talking about what to do if you're already in a relationship that shows the signs, but you can seek counseling. Mental health counselors are available, and obviously you can make other decisions, but you have to see if it's fixable. If the person realizes what they're doing and does it purposely, that may be someone to get away from. But if it's someone who's just doing it and they don't realize what they're doing, well, then maybe counseling might help. So you'll have to see what works out for that. So for now, all we can do is wake up each morning with a smile, take a breath, hold it, let it go, and relax each day and begin each day anew with the knowledge we get from anything we read or hear. And I hope that this knowledge helps you in some form, some way, to be compatible and to judge compatibility. Until next time, listeners, goodbye.